The doorbell's ring shattered the silence of my apartment at 3 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw my sister Rachel, her face half hidden in shadow. When I opened the door, time seemed to stop. Her right eye was swollen shut, a purple-blue map spreading across her cheekbone. Behind her, my niece Olivia sat trembling in her wheelchair, clutching a backpack with cartoon unicorns. Snow melted from their clothes onto my welcome mat. "We didn't know where else to go," Rachel whispered, her voice cracking. "I remembered your address from the Christmas card you sent us." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my mother. "Don't you dare take them in. Martin says they stole from us. Police are involved." The lie hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Olivia's face, eyes wide with fear, a child who couldn't run from danger, and something crystallized inside me. The perfect family image I desperately maintained for years shattered completely. My name is Nicole. I'm 34, and I'm a software developer. This is the story of how I broke the chains that nearly strangled the people I love most. "Get inside," I said, stepping back to make room for Olivia's wheelchair. "You're safe now." Rachel flinched at the word safe like it was a language she'd forgotten. She limped across the threshold, one arm protectively around Olivia's shoulders. Under the hallway light, I saw what the darkness had hidden. A cut along her jawline, still oozing blood, and finger-shaped bruises circling her wrists. "Did Martin do this?" I asked, though I already knew. My stepfather's rage had been a family secret for too long. Rachel nodded slightly, eyes downcast. "Mom watched." She didn't stop him. She told us to get out when I couldn't give them Liv's disability check. Her disability check? My voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "They've been taking it for months. Mom said they needed it for house repairs." Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. "Last week I saw cruise tickets on their counter." My mind flashed to all the emergencies over the past 2 years. The broken furnace, the medical bills, the roof repairs, thousands of dollars I'd sent without question, all while they'd been draining my disabled niece's support funds. That night, I set Rachel and Olivia up in my spare bedroom. After they fell asleep, I sat at my kitchen table, scrolling through emergency housing options and legal resources. Rachel's phone, plugged in beside me, lit up with a notification, a voicemail. I shouldn't have listened to it, but something, instinct maybe, made me press play. My mother's voice filled the kitchen, cold and unfamiliar. "If you embarrass me in front of Martin again, I swear I'll make you both disappear. That crippled brat better stay quiet too. We know people at social services who can take her away with one phone call." The mug in my hand crashed to the floor, not just theft and assault, but threats against a child, my niece, my blood. I replayed the message, this time recording it on my own phone. Evidence. The first weapon in a war I hadn't planned but couldn't avoid. 3 days passed in a fog of phone calls and paperwork. Rachel's bruises darkened to ugly yellow-green patches, while Olivia jumped at every sound. They were healing, physically at least, when the doorbell rang again. Martin stood on my porch, holding a bouquet of supermarket flowers like a peace offering. Behind him, my mother waited in their luxury SUV, engine running. They must have gotten my address from family records they kept at their house. "Nicole," he said, voice honey-sweet, "we've come to take the girls home. There's been a misunderstanding." I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "A misunderstanding? Rachel has a concussion. Olivia had frostbite on her fingers." "Your sister is unstable," he said, smile never wavering. "She attacked me first. Ask your mother. We just want what's best for the child." "What's best? Like stealing her disability checks for your Caribbean cruise?" His smile faltered. "You always were the troublemaker. We took care of them for years. We deserve compensation." "Compensation?" The word burned in my throat. "From a disabled child?" "Listen carefully." Martin leaned closer, dropping his voice. "I'm still on the lease for their apartment. I can report them as runaways, or worse, report you for kidnapping. How would that look for your fancy tech job?" I stepped back, pulling out my phone. "Then maybe practice saying that to the police." I pressed record, holding the screen where he could see it. "Tell them how you beat my sister unconscious. Tell them how you threw a disabled child into a blizzard. Tell them how you stole federal benefits from a minor. His face contorted. You think you're so smart. You've always thought you were better than us. No, Martin, I just finally see you clearly. He stormed back to the SUV. My mother never looked at me, never got out of the car. They drove away, but I knew it wasn't over. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courthouse conference room with Rachel and our lawyer, Diane, whom we'd found through a legal aid service specializing in family abuse cases. Across the table, my mother and Martin filed an emergency petition for custody of Olivia, claiming Rachel was unfit and I was harboring a child against court orders. They're painting you as unstable, Diane explained, reviewing their filing, and they're claiming Olivia needs specialized care they can provide. Rachel's hands trembled. They'll win, won't they? They always do. Not today, I said, sliding a USB drive to Diane. This contains 3 pieces of evidence. First, the voicemail with my mother threatening to make them disappear. Second, bank records showing Martin depositing Olivia's disability checks into their personal account for the past 8 months, which I obtained through a subpoena request you filed last week. Third, medical records from the night I took them in. The hearing began with the judge's stern face reviewing the filings. Martin sat with perfect posture, my mother beside him in her church clothes, both the picture of concerned guardians. Your Honor, their lawyer began, my clients have provided a stable home for years. Ms. Rachel Jenkins has a history of instability and recently abandoned their home without notice, taking a vulnerable child into inadequate living conditions. The judge turned to our table. Ms. Jenkins, how do you respond to these allegations? Rachel looked frozen, so I squeezed her hand and stood. Your Honor, may I speak on my sister's behalf? The judge nodded. My sister didn't abandon their home. She was thrown out with her disabled daughter after being physically assaulted by my stepfather. We have evidence to present. Objection! Their lawyer jumped up. These are baseless accusations. The judge raised a hand. I'll hear the evidence. Diane played the voicemail, its threats echoing through the silent courtroom. My mother's face drained of color as her own voice betrayed her. This recording was made without consent, their lawyer protested. Single-party consent is legal in this state, Diane replied smoothly, and we have more. The bank records appeared on the projection screen. 8 months of Olivia's disability checks deposited directly into my mother and Martin's personal account. These funds are meant for Olivia's care, Diane explained. Instead, they were used for a Caribbean cruise, luxury purchases, and spa treatments. The courtroom stirred. Martin leaned forward, whispering furiously to their lawyer. And finally, Diane continued, medical reports from the night Ms. Jenkins and her daughter arrived at Nicole's apartment, documenting multiple contusions, a mild concussion, and early-stage frostbite. The judge reviewed the evidence silently, her expression unreadable. Then she looked directly at my mother. Mrs. Whitmore, would you like to respond to these allegations? My mother stood, smoothing her skirt. Your Honor, we've always provided for Rachel and Olivia. We may have been strict at times, but everything we did was for their benefit. For their benefit? The words burst from Martin before his lawyer could stop him. Do you know how much it costs to raise a child with a disability? The appointments, the equipment, the special foods. That money was compensation for our sacrifices. The courtroom fell silent. The judge's pen paused mid-note. Mr. Whitmore, she said quietly, are you admitting to using the child's disability benefits for your personal expenses? Martin's lawyer tried to intervene, but it was too late. Martin's face flushed red. We deserved every penny for putting up with them. The judge's gavel came down with finality. Emergency petition denied. I'm ordering an immediate investigation into the misappropriation of disability benefits and possible criminal charges for assault and child endangerment. Temporary custody of Olivia Jenkins is awarded to her mother, with supervised visitation for grandparents at the court's discretion. As the courtroom emptied, my mother caught my arm. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into my skin. You've destroyed this family? She hissed. I looked into the eyes that had watched violence without flinching. No, Mom, you did that yourself. 3 months later, I sat on the porch of the small house Rachel, Olivia, and I now shared. After the court case, we pooled our resources and I used my savings for a down payment on this accessible home. The spring air carried the scent of new beginnings as Rachel brought out lemonade. Her movements no longer guarded, her smile reaching her eyes. Olivia wheeled herself onto the porch ramp we'd built together, proudly showing me her latest drawing. 3 stick figures in front of a house, labeled My Family. "Do you think it's over?" Rachel asked quietly, watching Olivia color. I thought about the restraining order against Martin, the ongoing investigation into the stolen benefits, the family therapy sessions that were slowly helping us rebuild. "Not completely," I answered honestly, "but we're writing a new story now." Inside, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The court had granted our petition for restitution. Martin and my mother would have to repay every dollar they'd taken from Olivia, with interest. The divorce between my mother and Martin had been finalized last week, another casualty of the stress from the investigation and court proceedings. Justice didn't arrive with sirens and handcuffs. It came in paperwork and court orders, in quiet evenings without fear, in a child's drawing where home meant safety instead of survival. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold and pink, I watched Olivia laugh at a squirrel darting across our yard. The broken pieces we'd been were slowly forming something new. Not perfect, but strong in the places that had been shattered. Healing doesn't look like winning. It looks like showing up day after day until the people you love no longer flinch at sudden movements. It looks like small victories and quiet mornings. It looks like us, 3 survivors finding our way home. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. 0 cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one. The air crystallized as my father's words settled across the table. "We're moving into your apartment tomorrow. No excuses." My sister Olivia's smile tightened into a smirk, while her boyfriend Taylor nodded with unearned confidence. Something sharp and metallic spread across my tongue as I watched them exchange glances, already dividing my space in their minds. My fingers tightened around the stem of my water glass until my knuckles blanched white. Under the table, my other hand pulled up the banking app on my phone. The confirmation of this morning's transaction still displayed. Transfer complete, $860,000. My name is Natalie. I'm 30 years old and built a healthcare tech startup from nothing but determination and sleepless nights. This is the story of how I finally stopped being my family's safety net and became their wake-up call instead. Growing up in Greenville meant learning my place early. Inside our Colonial 2 story, love flowed toward Olivia in steady currents while I learned to survive on droplets. She received praise for C- efforts. I earned silent nods for perfect scores. Her bedroom walls featured professional painting. Mine showcased peeling wallpaper I covered with achievement certificates that no one acknowledged. For her 16th birthday, a red convertible appeared in our driveway with a giant bow. That same year, I walked to campus in secondhand sneakers, carrying textbooks purchased with babysitting money. "She needs confidence," my mother explained about the car. "You're already so self-sufficient," she told me, as though independence were a consolation prize rather than a survival tactic they'd forced upon me. When London University offered me a partial scholarship, hope flickered to life, only to be extinguished when my mother's hospital bills arrived. "Your sister's too young to handle responsibility," my father explained, eyes averted. "You're stronger. You'll figure something out." I surrendered my acceptance letter and took a cashier position under humming fluorescent lights. Instead of studying abroad, I stocked shelves and reconciled registers, watching my dreams dissolve into someone else's medical payments. That night, I stopped waiting for their approval. I opened a separate account at a different bank and began saving with religious discipline. I mapped escape routes while Olivia posted vacation photos from the trips my parents couldn't afford but somehow justified. I studied code until my vision blurred, finding order in systems that followed logical rules, unlike family. After graduation, instead of attending the lavish party they threw for Olivia's art degree, I submitted my first investment in a struggling healthcare startup. My co-workers became a chosen family. Daniel, who repaired laptops for gas money, Sharon, whose strategic mind cut through problems like a scalpel, and Patrick, whose legal expertise provided guardrails around our innovations. We built something real from folding tables and discount office chairs, remote patient monitoring software that actually worked. Not flashy, not trending, but necessary. Hospitals signed contracts. Investors noticed. My small stake grew into substantial equity. At 27, I purchased my apartment. One bedroom with eastern windows that filled the space with morning light. Nothing extravagant, but entirely mine. The deed bore only my name, a document that felt more significant than any diploma. When my family finally visited my office, their expression shifted from dismissal to calculation. "How much is your stake worth now?" my father asked, eyes scanning for valuations rather than accomplishments. "Family helps family," my mother reminded me, her tone suggesting obligation rather than connection. That night, Aunt Rachel called with the missing information. "They're $50,000 in credit card debt. Between Olivia's studio, your mom's treatments, and their trips." Her voice trailed off. Later, I overheard my father in the hallway. "Natalie's place is big enough. We'll move in, save rent. She can contribute more. It's only fair." Fair. The word landed like a slap. I opened spreadsheets documenting years of asymmetrical sacrifice. Babysitting money borrowed but never returned. Scholarships surrendered to medical bills. Dreams deferred while others flourished. The next morning, I called Patrick and transferred my company stake into a protected account. $860,000. Not wealth by Silicon Valley standards, but enough to build a fortress around my future. Saturday evening at Magnolia Bistro, candlelight flickered across polished menus and illuminated the certainty in my parents' eyes. Daniel sat beside me, his presence steady as a foundation wall. He and I had grown closer over the past year, our late nights debugging code evolving into dinners and weekend hikes where we talked about everything except work. "Natalie, we've decided," my father announced, setting down his wine glass with authority. "Tomorrow, we're moving into your apartment." My mother nodded, adding, "It's what families do for each other." Her tone suggested the matter was already settled. Olivia swiped her phone screen without looking up. "My studio equipment needs the spare room." Taylor twirled pasta around his fork. "We figured you'd be at work most of the time anyway." I set down my fork, folded my napkin precisely, and looked directly into my father's eyes. "That's fine," I said calmly. "Just bring $860,000. The table froze. My father's jaw stiffened. My mother's smile collapsed. Olivia dropped her phone with a clatter. Taylor's fork hovered mid-air, pasta strands dangling. "What are you talking about?" my father finally managed. "That's the value of my independence. You taught me well about investments." My voice remained level, betraying none of the thundering in my chest. "You want equity in my life? That's the buy-in price." Olivia recovered first. "You've always been selfish," she hissed. "Hoarding everything while we struggle." Struggle? I tilted my head. Like when I gave up London so Mom could have her surgery, or when I worked 2 jobs while you toured Europe on their credit card? My mother dabbed at tears that seemed to appear on command. "After everything we sacrificed for you," she whispered. "Sacrifices?" I remembered her signature on my scholarship rejection letter. "Tell me exactly which sacrifices those were." My father's voice hardened. "You're turning your back on family. Everyone will hear about this." "That's your choice," I replied. "But my apartment, like my life, isn't community property." I placed my credit card on the check. "I'm done being your safety net." Daniel's hand found mine under the table. Aunt Rachel nodded slowly from her seat, pride softening her features. For once, they weren't towering over me. I was looking them in the eye, and they were the ones who blinked first. After leaving the restaurant that night, I returned to my apartment feeling lighter than I had in years. I knew the confrontation wasn't over, but for the first time, I had drawn a line they couldn't simply step across. The storm hit Monday morning before my coffee cooled. Olivia's social media exploded with carefully framed tears and captions like sharpened knives. Abandoned by my own sister. Tech money changes people. Comments accumulated like wet newspapers. Former classmates shared, judged, then unfriended. I didn't respond. Feeding fires only spreads them. By noon, my building's security called. My parents were in the lobby of our tech campus, demanding to see me. They had tracked down my workplace address from my company website, which listed all founders with our office location. Red-faced and gesturing wildly, my father shouted about family obligations while my mother dabbed at rehearsed tears. "Not here," I said firmly, stepping from the elevator into the lobby where security was holding them. "This is my workplace. Leave now or I'll have security escort you out." They escalated. I did not. "You'll regret this, Natalie," echoed down the corridor as security guided them toward the exit. My cheeks burned, but my spine remained straight. I called Patrick immediately. "Documents are airtight," he confirmed. "No basis for any claim." That night, I methodically blocked their numbers, changing my email filters to redirect their messages to a folder I wouldn't have to see. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt like oxygen rediscovered. Days passed. Our company shipped the mental wellness module on schedule. Hospitals called, users stayed, the team expanded. Success no longer felt like armor. It felt like breath. 3 months later, Aunt Rachel called with updates. She and I had maintained our weekly calls, a tradition we both cherished even more now. My parents had sold the house where I'd grown up. A retirement apartment with linoleum floors replaced marble countertops. Olivia's studio had downsized to a corner of her bedroom in a shared apartment. "They still mention your name sometimes," Rachel said. "But even thunder eventually runs out of sound." On quiet evenings, Daniel and I walked our neighborhood, counting porch lights instead of old debts. What began as friendship during late-night debugging sessions had grown into something solid and true. We married in the park by the river, with Aunt Rachel crying softly while I remained dry-eyed. Relief feels different than grief. We established clear rules for our shared life. Honesty first, boundaries second, everything else negotiable. I invested carefully, not for approval, but for security. No secret lifelines, no emergency transfers to keep others' chaos manageable. 6 months after the dinner confrontation, a text arrived from an unfamiliar number. "It's Olivia. Can we talk?" We agreed to meet at Riverside Cafe, a quiet spot downtown that neither of us had frequented before. Neutral territory. Her designer clothes had been replaced by retail basics. Her nails were short, unpainted. She looked smaller somehow, but her eyes seemed clearer. "I've been in therapy," she said without preamble. "I didn't understand what we were doing to you until everything fell apart." I listened silently, waiting. Mom and Dad are different now. Not completely changed, but quieter. Dad's working again. Mom's actually cooking instead of ordering in. She hesitated. "They're not ready to apologize, but I am. I took you for granted. I'm sorry. I didn't rush to forgive, didn't immediately offer solutions." "Thank you for saying that," I replied simply. She nodded, understanding the boundary. "I'm not asking for money. I got a job at the gallery. It doesn't pay much, but it's mine." Something shifted between us. Not reconciliation exactly, but recognition. We ordered second coffees and talked about normal things. The weather, a new restaurant, a book she'd read. For the first time, we spoke as adults rather than assigned roles. When she left, I didn't promise weekly dinners or holiday reunions. I simply said, "This was nice. Let's do it again sometime." We agreed to meet monthly, a pace that felt manageable for this tentative new connection. As for my parents, I never received an apology. 2 years passed before I saw them at Aunt Rachel's birthday celebration. A brief, civil interaction that confirmed what we both already knew. Our relationship would never be what it was. It would be distant, occasional, and maintained with firm boundaries. They had lost the privilege of intimate access to my life. a consequence they finally seemed to understand, even if they couldn't admit they deserved it. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates you control. Here's what I learned. Strength isn't the reason you should carry everyone else's weight. Generosity without limits turns holy water to flood. Love without respect becomes a leash. I didn't abandon my family. I abandoned the role they wrote for me. I kept the part where I deserve air. If you've ever been the family safety net, the responsible one, the one who can handle it, I see you. You're allowed to choose yourself without apology. You're allowed to build a life that fits. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one. The rain hammered against my windshield as I pulled up to Vanessa's pristine suburban house. My heart stopped. There on the porch, huddled against the storm, sat my 6-year-old son, soaked to the bone, trembling. His little backpack beside him spilled wet books and clothes onto the concrete. His lips were blue, his eyes red and vacant. I bolted from the car, my own clothes instantly drenched as I sprinted toward him. When I scooped him into my arms, he didn't cry or speak. He just collapsed against me like a wounded animal seeking shelter. Then I felt him shiver and heard his tiny voice whisper against my neck. "She hit me with the shoe, Mama. I was just singing. I wasn't yelling." My name is Rachel. I'm 34 and a tech consultant. This is the story of how I turned a rainstorm into a hurricane. The front door swung open as I carried Owen to my car. Vanessa stood there in her designer outfit, casually sipping a mimosa, her makeup perfect, not a single golden hair out of place. She leaned against the door frame with a smirk that made my blood boil. "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes. It wasn't that serious. He was being obnoxious, screaming like a banshee while I was on an important Zoom call. I needed peace. I froze, my son's small body still shivering against mine. "You hit him." "Don't be dramatic." She actually laughed. It was a slipper. Kids need discipline. I tucked Owen into the back seat of my car, wrapped him in the emergency blanket I kept in my trunk. His eyes watched me, trusting me to make this right. "You threw my son into a thunderstorm," I said, turning back to face her. Vanessa took another sip from her glass. "He's fine. Honestly, if you weren't such a coddling single mom, maybe he wouldn't be so—" I slammed the car door before she could finish, cutting off her words but not the damage they'd done. My hands shook as I started the engine and drove away from my sister's house. My vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. Not yet. Not until Owen was safe. For 6 years, I'd worked 2 jobs while building a tech consultancy on the side. I'd grown accustomed to the dismissive comments from my family about my little hobby business, while they fawned over Vanessa's every achievement. The perfect daughter with her perfect career, perfect fiancé, and now, perfect wedding on the horizon. I'd spent a lifetime being compared to her and found wanting. When I dropped Owen at my sister's that morning, I'd felt the usual twist of inadequacy. My mother had orchestrated the visit, insisting it would help Owen bond with his aunt before the wedding and give me time to catch up on whatever it is you do. The same mother who had funded Vanessa's college education but told me to apply for loans. The same father who had given Vanessa the down payment for her house but suggested I look into affordable housing programs. At home, I bathed Owen, warming his cold little body, reassuring him with every touch that he was safe, he was loved, he mattered. Once he fell asleep, clinging to me even in his dreams, I called my parents. "Mom," Vanessa hit Owen and locked him outside in the rain. A long pause, then my mother's practiced sigh. "You always exaggerate, honey." "What? I'm not—" My father's voice cut in. "Vanessa's just stressed with the wedding. Don't ruin her moment." Not a single question about Owen, not a hint of concern for their grandson, just excuses, just deflection. "Did you hear me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "She hit your grandson and left him in a thunderstorm." "Well," my mother replied, Maybe if he wasn't so loud all the time. I hung up, staring at my phone in disbelief as a text message appeared almost immediately. Don't make this into drama. Your sister's wedding is next week. Don't ruin it like you ruin everything. Something broke inside me that night. Not loudly, not obviously, but completely. I looked at my sleeping son, his face still showing traces of tears even in rest, and made a decision. They didn't protect him. They didn't protect me. They laughed. I was done playing nice. The next morning, while Owen played with his toy truck on the rug beside me, I opened my laptop and began. What my family didn't know, what they had never bothered to ask, was that my little side hustle had grown. The tech project I'd consulted on 2 years ago, the one Vanessa had mockingly called my cute hobby, had quietly exploded. I had savings, I had connections, I had silent investors who respected my work. I spent the day making calls, first to a lawyer, then to 3 more, then to the country club where Vanessa was planning her wedding. It took 1 conversation, 2 wire transfers to the right accounts, and 40 minutes of paperwork. The venue was mine now. The reservation canceled. They wouldn't know it yet, though. I wanted it to sting. In the days leading up to the wedding, my parents barely acknowledged me. No apology, no check-in on Owen. My mother posted endless social media stories about family unity and countdown to forever. Vanessa had dress fittings, spa days, bridal photo shoots, a princess preparing for her coronation. On Tuesday, 5 days before the wedding, the club emailed her with the news. The venue was under new ownership and unavailable for her event. My phone rang within the hour. "Did you do something?" Vanessa hissed. "Excuse me." "Don't play dumb. You always wanted to ruin my life. What did you say to them?" I kept my voice neutral. "I didn't say anything. But it's funny you think I could." "You're such a bitter," she began, but I hung up. Instead, I focused on my own plan. I created a private event, not a wedding, not a party, just a celebration. I invited people they knew, not my parents, not Vanessa, just the extended family and friends who had always looked at me like I was invisible. I booked a caterer, a string quartet. I had photos of Owen and me, framed and placed throughout the hall. I created a slideshow of years of hard work, promotions, milestones, and Owen's drawings. I wanted the world to see what they had chosen to overlook. Vanessa called again 2 days later. They canceled the decorator and the band. What's going on? I let the silence linger. Maybe you should ask Mom and Dad. They seem to think you deserve everything. Maybe they'll manifest it for you. You selfish, like you were when you struck a child with a slipper and threw him into the rain. Dead silence, then softly, he was being loud. And you'll remember that every time you hear thunder. I hung up again, but I wasn't done. The day of what should have been her wedding arrived, Saturday, exactly 9 days after the incident with Owen. Guests showed up to the country club and were redirected with a printed sign that read, "Private celebration of strength and survival, by invitation only." I had coordinated with the venue staff the previous day to ensure all guests would be properly directed. Inside, I stood at the center, Owen in a tiny suit beside me. I watched as old family friends, distant relatives, and even some of Vanessa's bridesmaids looked at the photo wall and whispered about the betrayal, the success, the story of a woman they didn't bother to know. And when Vanessa finally stormed through the doors, dressed in full bridal glam, tears streaking her mascara, demanding to know why, I looked her in the eyes and smiled. "You hit my son," I said clearly. "You mocked me. You erased us. This," I gestured around the room, "this is what forgotten looks like." She turned to my parents, expecting support, but even they stood frozen because someone had leaked the security footage from her porch that night. Earlier that week, I had obtained the footage from her doorbell camera through a friend who worked in tech security, the same friend who helped me quietly upload it to social media the day before. The internet had seen it. The news had picked it up. Sponsors had backed out. Her fiancé had quietly flown back to his parents' home, and now she stood in a designer dress, alone, humiliated, and begging. Vanessa collapsed into one of the empty chairs, her white dress now wrinkled and soaked in sweat. Her perfectly styled hair clung to her cheeks. Everyone was staring, but no one stepped in to help her. She kept whispering, "This wasn't supposed to happen. This was my day." And for once in her life, no one cared. Across the room, Owen looked up at me. "Mommy, why is Auntie crying?" I bent down to his level and kissed his forehead. Because she finally saw the storm she caused. I didn't want revenge. I wanted reckoning. And this was just the beginning. My parents approached timidly, the same parents who'd watched my child be thrown into the rain and laughed about it. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace nervously. My father cleared his throat. "You didn't have to destroy her life like this," he said. I tilted my head. "Did you say that when she raised her hand to a child?" "She was under stress," my mother replied. "The wedding planning." "She struck my son and you laughed," I snapped, my voice sharp now. "You watched a 6-year-old sobbing and shivering and said he should be quieter. You don't get to moralize now." "But to air it all out online," my father tried again. "That footage going viral, that was cruel." I looked them dead in the eye. "She hit a child and then you posted cake photos like nothing happened. You taught her that cruelty has no consequences. I just corrected the equation." They had no words. Behind me, the string quartet played softly. Owen was dancing with one of the wait staff. Guests were still mingling, still talking in hushed tones. Some avoided Vanessa. Others looked at her like she was a stranger, because she was. The mask had finally cracked. And it didn't stop there. A week later, I received an email from Vanessa's former fiancé. No anger, no threats, just a quiet message. "Thank you. I didn't see it before, but I do now. I hope you and your son are safe and healing." 2 weeks after that, a sponsorship company announced they were pulling Vanessa from their influencer roster, citing recent revelations inconsistent with our values. A month later, my mother tried calling again. "We need help," she said quietly. "The community won't speak to us. Everyone thinks we condone abuse." I paused. "Don't you?" She didn't answer. "I guess it's just hard," she mumbled, "having your own daughter turn against you." I exhaled slowly. "I didn't turn against you. You were never standing beside me to begin with." Click. That was the last time I spoke to her until 6 months later. I was opening my second office. The tech company I had quietly helped build had expanded into 3 cities. Owen was in school full-time, thriving, happy, safe. There was a knock at my door. Vanessa. She looked hollow. No makeup, no glamour, just a plain hoodie, dark circles under her eyes, and a folder in her trembling hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I lost everything. Sponsors, clients, people. I thought I was strong, but I was just loud. You were the strong one." She held out the folder. Inside were therapy documents, legal apologies, a letter addressed to Owen. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said, "but I need you to know that I'm trying, and I'll never forgive myself for what I did." I didn't say anything, but Owen's words rang in my ears from that night. "Why do they hate me, Mommy?" I would never let that boy wonder again, so I took the folder, not for her, but for him, because he deserved to see that even monsters could learn to kneel, and that even if the world turned against you, truth always finds the light. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, 0 cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.